Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching me. Welcome to the fifth episode of Mohsen Ki Baitak. Well, first of all, I miss talking to you. Since 2 weeks, we haven't really had an episode of Mohsen Ki Baitak. I've just returned from my little adventure across the continent, and I'm all set to share with you a topic which has been quite a struggle for me. Now, the word which will we focus on today is courage. Well, you might say what's new in this word, and we really exhibit it all the time across different parts of our life. But do we really know what it means? So that's going to be the major concern or assumption which we're going to put to test in today's episode. Now, thank you so much for having sent your feedback about Mohsin Kivetek. I really appreciate it. And if you're new to this series, this is a series of 8 episodes, and 4 episodes we've really talked about how to um, garner self-help and personal leadership. And now we are moving more towards more elaborate virtues like courage and discipline and all those sorts of values that could really help us become better at our personal and professional lives. So, this is the fifth installment in the series, and today we are focusing on the word courage. If you have any questions or feedback, you could email that to me at mosen@gbox.org. The description or the email ID is also given in the description below. Right, so what is courage? Simply put, it is this quality of mind or spirit rather than the physical self. We'll come to this distinction just in a bit. So, courage is defined as this quality of mind or spirit that enables a person to face difficulty, danger, or pain without fear. Now, this is what the dictionary says, right? The quality of mind or spirit that enables a person to face a difficulty or a problem without fear. And synonyms for this word are like bravery, valor, bravado. So these are some of the words which you might hear. Bravery is more towards like ultimate courage, where you've had a fight in a war or something, and you come uh, yeah, you come back with an award or something, or having won the war and things like that. So that's how people usually perceive the word bravery. Now we'll come to how this definition might not be true or maybe true. So this remember this word without fear, and we'll come back to it. Right. So where does this word come from? It actually comes from, it's borrowed from Old French actually, and it comes from and has its root in Latin word, uh, coraticum, which simply means from the heart. It's actually, courage is something stemming from the heart, from within. And that's a very interesting etymology, because you sort of assume at first courage is an amalgamation of physical and emotional strength and all, but the word itself is distantly related to the word cardiac, which means of the heart in Greek. Right. So, so far we've seen that courage may be the quality of being confident and not afraid and not easily intimidated. But important thing is without being inconsiderate or incautious. There's a difference between being courageous and being silly and getting yourself hurt, right? So remember, to qualify as courage, there has to be some element of risk taking involved, but it never has to be uh, like incautious or inconsiderate of those factors. Right. Why are we talking about this today? This is an important question we need to ask ourselves. Now, courage is something we all want. We, as a kid, as from the very young, uh, of our life, we're told by our parents, by people around us, that in this big, cruel world, courage is something you need to sustain. You need to be brave. You need to face ordeals and face life in the bestest of manner. And it's often considered an attribute of good character, which makes us worthy of respect and also self confidence and self dignity. From religious books to fairy tales, ancient myths to so many movies, our culture sort of is rich with exemplary tales of how bravery and courage and self sacrifice for the greater good exists, right? Like, for example, Star Wars, Harry Potter, uh, if not just looking at the more fictional world, maybe for you, Rosa Parks, who stood in front of a bus during African American movement in the U.S., or in case of Pakistan's independence movement, Qaeda Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, or if you're more into physical bravery, you'll be like Muhammad Ali the boxer, or again Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, soldiers, martyrs, all those could come under this broader term of exhibiting courage. However, it's really important for you to understand that courage is not just physical bravery. There are history books which are full of colorful tales of social activists like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, who choose to speak out against injustice at a great personal risk. Right? There is a difference with it. There could be a community risk people are working towards, or a national risk, for example, in a war or a fighting against certain enemy. But then there could be a greater personal risk for coming out and talking about things and doing stuff that might not fit the stereotypical notion of someone else's reality, right? Similarly, entrepreneurs, for example, Steve Jobs or Walt Disney, who took financial risks to follow their dreams and innovate and came across as his modern day knights for so many people to look at them as examples, right? Uh, Maybe Elon Musk may be considered courageous by some people. So there are different types of courage, ranging from physical strength and endurance to mental stamina and innovation. Innovation itself is a form of courage. So this is what I was trying to uh, want you to understand or take away from today's session, that often we underestimate the word courage and we always see it in a more physical strength or endurance, but it could also manifest mental stamina and willingness to innovate or willingness to stand against the uh, common norms around us. So, what is happening here in your brain right now? So, if I can guess it right, you're starting to categorize people in these different categories, right? If are they physically brave, are they emotionally brave? Why can't it be not mutually exclusive? Why can it both occur in one person? Can only one thing occur in another person, and can the other thing occur in some other people? Or we all go through these different components of courage and bravery throughout our life. You might have the strength right now to physically endure an ordeal, but in a couple of years, you might be more emotionally mature or have the mental stamina to endure different sorts of activities and risks where courage is needed. However, we find it rather easy as a society to admire physical bravery more than moral courage. I would not blame people a lot in this. It's often that it's intimidating when you see a physically brave person or a well put person together. You often think, oh, this is the kind of person you feel intimidated from. However, moral courage is often not exhibited publicly, also. So, this is something that people struggle to identify in other people around them. So, what is true courage then? I'm going to share three quotes with you because that's how I define courage in my own personal life. There is a very famous proverb: fear and courage are brothers. Now, what is happening here? Remember the definition I told you. That was an act of uh, not being intimidated and standing in the uh, front of all life's problems, but without fear. But now the proverb is saying fear and courage are brothers. Why didn't he say, or she say, they were enemies? Similarly, Nelson Mandela said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Fear is something very natural, and those who do not fear often may be stupid or maybe too arrogant to acknowledge that fear exists around them. Nelson Mandela goes on to then say that the brave man is not who he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Now, if we go in a more recent example, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, there is a very interesting quote which I came through, although I haven't seen the series. It goes on to say, Bran thought about it. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? And then he goes on to say his father told him that it is the only time a man can be brave. While it's a bit sexist here, so it also should entail women. So it's as a human, I do think that you are of course taking a risk here. There is that element of risk taking involved, but you're standing in the center of your peace against life's many storms. However, you still feel a little afraid, and that is what should push and give you that sense of courage that you are not going to not acknowledge the fact that fear exists, but you're going to conquer over that and do what is right in your own situation. So, what is then courage to me? To me, true courage only physical bravery, but to me, courage is also a little voice at the end of the day that I will try again tomorrow. I'll do a little better. Maybe I'm trying to manage my life. I'm trying to manage all my uh, uh, daily routine elements, and I would be able to do it. This willingness to having achieved a sense of achievement at the end of the day could also be courage, or battles which no one knows you're fighting. Be it in mental health conditions or so many other issues where people might not be able to share around them how courageous they have to be to live up to a certain point in life. So then, how do we bring it together? There's a very famous quote by Ines Nin, which goes on to say, "Life shrinks and expands in proportion to one's courage." I just love this statement. I often used to say that there is nothing good and bad. Your thinking makes it so, or happiness is often defined by your ability to switch on the light wherever you are. This one might be my new favorite now. How courageous you are might enhance or might bring down your perspective about life. So, if you're courageous, you can stand, as I said, in the center of your peace in life's many storms and face it up front, but acknowledging the fear. And why acknowledging the fear is important to me, what I've understood is that you might get tired very quickly in this process uh, if you do not acknowledge the presence of fear. You might give up quickly, if not very soon, maybe in a few years or a few months, or however you you could take that sense of fear and sense of courage that you're trying to develop. So, yeah, so this is really important to understand that courage is some sort of, Maya Angelou says that it's like the most important of the virtues, because without courage, you can't really practice any other virtue consistently. You have to be courageous to be kind. You have to be courageous to be a good person. You have to be courageous to not given the pressure of the society and do the stereotypical things. As a man, my positionality in the Pakistani society or as a third culture kid is often challenged by the stereotypical norms we have around us. But I try to challenge that. Is that courage? Yes, to me it is courage. And that is what I'm trying to encourage through today's session, that we really need to start thinking of courage in a more broader sense rather than just physical bravery or endurance, but also this mental stamina and the ability to acknowledge fear and taking risk around us in whatever capacity. Uh, be it a small girl deciding to go to school tomorrow, and aiming to be a big shot professional one day in a situation where she still fears that she will have the right resources or not, or be it an old man who still goes on to read newspaper hoping that there some good change would come in the society or in his country, or a soldier who's already fought wars and has come back home and still has that endurance that when the right day comes, he would stand for his country or his people again. So, all these are different forms of bravery, and we all have them in one way or the other. So, remember, be confident, not afraid, or easily intimidated, but never at the expense of being incautious and inconsiderate. So, uh, in today's session, I talked about how we could be emotionally courageous, and we need to start acknowledging that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to conquer over it. Thank you so much for joining today's session. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to write to me at mohsen@thegbox.org. I will be back next week with another interesting topic. I wouldn't tell you what it is right now. You need to like and share this video, and hopefully, in a few couple of days, you would know what we'll be talking about next. So, thank you. Have a great day and weekend.